Hello students, this is Dr. Faizan Mirza. I am discussing with you biodiversity, classification and conservation. To understand the basics of biodiversity, we need to recall what a species is. A species is a group of organisms with similar morphology, physiology, and which can interbreed to produce fertile offspring, and they are reproductively isolated, something that we already have covered. What is an ecosystem? An ecosystem is basically a self-contained system in which the organisms which are living there, they live in a community and they interact with each other as well as the environment. Habitat is the place, the immediate environment in which an organism lives, and some organisms show habitat preference. Organisms do not live in isolation and they live together and they form a community. For example, in an ecosystem, there is a community of different organisms living together. We can recall the food chains and food webs idea here. Communities, when they interact together, they form ecosystem. We've already discussed this. What is niche? Niche is the role of an organism in an ecosystem. For example, decomposers. Decomposers decompose. They return the nutrients to the soil, to the environment. Similarly, the role of the decomposers is decomposition. So that's their niche. Similarly, plants are producers. So the niche of plants is to produce organic food using raw materials from the environment. We already see that in some ecosystems, one or two species become dominant while other species are rare because the environment favors them more than the other. For example, trees in Canada, which can survive the very below freezing temperature. They are the ones which actually are dominant there as compared to other plants. Similarly, for example, Conocarpus in Karachi is one of the species which is an alien species in Karachi, and it became an invasive species as well. And currently the environment is favoring it. You can see it overgrown in almost every district of the city. When we are discussing biodiversity, what actually is biodiversity? Biodiversity refers to the variation or the diversity in the life forms, and it basically accounts for the number of and variety of life forms present in an environment or found within a specific area. The area can be defined by a geographic region. This would include all the different plants as well as animals. This would include microorganisms. It would include all the genes that they contain as well as the ecosystem that they form. As I discussed previously, biodiversity is considered at three different levels: ecosystem diversity, species diversity, and genetic diversity. These are the three levels at which biodiversity can be considered. When we are dealing with ecosystem diversity, we basically see that this describes the variation in all the living and the non-living components or the things in particular geographic or ecological region. Ecosystems, they comprise unique combination of animals, plants, microbes, which mean microorganisms, and the physical characteristics that define that particular locality or location. Ecosystems, we know that their functioning is basically governed by ecological evolutionary processes. For example, how much food is available, the food chain, the food webs, competition, predation, and predator aversion, for example. And together with all the individual components, for example, the herbivores, the predators, all of them are there in an ecosystem. We know that the mammals and birds are the most evolved life forms currently, and both of them are warm-blooded. So currently the environment is favoring the warm-blooded organisms more than the cold-blooded. Mammals are the only ones who actually can be found in all three environments, for example, water, air, and land. Most diverse mammals and birds are found near tropics because tropical regions are the ones which are warmer, and the mammals and birds which need to maintain their body temperature at a certain temperature by homeostasis don't have to spend a lot of energy in maintaining the temperature since they are living in tropics, which are already warmer regions of the environment. What's the species diversity? Species diversity, it basically is a variety of group of interbreeding organisms. And these interbreeding organisms in a particular habitat or an ecosystem, they are found together. Total number estimated is about 100 million species globally. About only 1.75 million species have been fully described so far. That means we hardly know a very small percentage out of all. Diversity of larger species is better understood and reported than that of the smaller species because the sample collection and their analysis is not that easy when they're very small. Tropical forests have half of the Earth's species. Why? Again, for the same reason, because they have a warmer temperature and they have a nutrient cycling and a lot of nutrients being available and recycled constantly. a lot of places to hide, camouflage, and fear a lot of variation within the species as well. Different phenotypic forms of the same species are a concern when we are accounting for a species diversity, because by mistake you may end up calling or counting all these snails as being different species, whereas they are not different species. They are all the different phenotypic forms of the same species. Frequency of each species in the ecosystem is defined as the species frequency. That means how many, and you need to count those. This also means species richness. The spread of different species throughout an ecosystem, that means per unit area, is called species abundance. And with that we refer to species density as well, because here the abiotic and biotic factors will be the ones which will be governing it. We come to genetic diversity. What is genetic diversity? The third level of diversity. It is the variation in the genetic composition of individuals within a particular population or a community or a species. Genetic diversity evolved over years due to chromosomal alterations, mutations, behavioral isolations, some physical isolation, and all of these allowed different individuals to adapt to different conditions in the same environment. And the ones who actually evolved, they survived both biotic and abiotic challenges, preventing extinction of the species and the genome of the species. So the greater the genetic diversity, the more resilient that organism is to getting extinct. For example, competition, resources for shelter are the ones which are sought by an organism. Predator aversion, camouflage, and coordination must be good. The alleles must be there for the organism to find camouflage and good coordination, the muscle coordination. Similarly, resistance to infection, temperature sensitivity, homeostasis, hibernation, estivation. Hibernation is the sleep in winters, whereas estivation is the summer sleep, which some organisms do. pH of soil, water, salinity, salt in the soil, and water availability. All these are the abiotic and biotic factors within an environment, and genetic diversity within an organism or a species or a community allow different variants of the same species to interact and to keep on surviving and reproducing, so that they can pass on their alleles that confer advantage in that environment to the next generation. That's it from my side. Thank you so much.